Local program funding provided by a generous grant from Union Pacific. Union Pacific, building America.
I'm Karen Hoyt, Marketing Director at Shasta Regional Medical Center, and we're proud to be part of the conversation that the Forum at KIXE is bringing to our community. Shasta Regional has been around for more than 60 years supporting our community, and we would like to invite you to be a part of the Forum on KIXE. Together, we can support the community that gives us back so much. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you for joining us on the Forum. We'll be talking today with women in media, and our guests are Linda Watkins-Bennett from Action News Now, Channel 12, and she is a news anchor woman there. And we also have Doni Chamberlain from A News Cafe, an online magazine that we have here in the North State. She's the founder and president. So I'm so excited to have you guys here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do and kind of how things have changed with you and what's...
I am a noon news anchorwoman for Action News Now, which airs on CBS 12. I also report for the evening news on Action News Now that airs on NBC 24. We have actually three newscasts, or three television stations that our news operation serves, NBC, CBS, and CW. And I also help with assignments in the newsroom.
And you're actually celebrating
28 years with our company this year. Yes, I started, actually I started while I was still in college working in radio as a news reporter, and that transitioned into television. So I'm happy to say I've been with the same company that long. I'm a North Stater, born and raised, and I had no desire to leave the area. So I'm happy to be able to work in news broadcasting.
You're probably one of the last who's going to be able to do that, to say I was 28 years with one company in one spot.
It's not very common.
That's unusual.
Not very common.
And Doni, you've been doing media for how many years?
About 20 years. I was a newspaper journalist and columnist at the Record Searchlight for 10 years. And then after my departure from the Record Searchlight, then I founded a news cafe 3 days after I left the paper. And it's an online news magazine, and we do all kinds of enterprising and features and news. And it's a tiny team, but we do a lot.
So go ahead, Ashley.
I was just going to say, how long have you actually been in? How long have you had a news cafe?
A news cafe is 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so I can't believe it's been there that long. And we've changed a lot, and at first it was just going to be like a little blog about writing about me being in the country and my golden retriever and cooking. And then when I left, because I left the paper, I had a lot of sources, and so I started doing news stories, and that snowballed. And now I pay writers to do all kinds of stories, and I write myself as well.
Wow. That's so amazing when you think, you guys, that's a long history. 20 years, 28 years in media. So let's talk a little bit as women in media.
Oh boy.
First of all, that's a unique thing in and of itself. And then how have you seen media in general change? I mean, obviously the latest news is with Jeff Bezos purchasing the Wall Street Journal. I mean, the changes that will be, Washington Post. Yes, huge changes will come. I mean, you can only imagine changes will come. What have you guys seen in your almost 30 years
We've been in
the
longer.
field?
Well, in television news, I mean, I think what makes news hasn't changed a lot, really. Still, people want to know about the fires and the accidents, the more sensational news, but they also want to know about the news that affects them. What's happening with your city council, what's happening with your schools, and of course all the positive news that we like to leave you with each day after we've bombarded you with the news that may bring you down a little bit. So I don't think the nature, what makes news has changed so much, but certainly how we deliver it. When I started as a young field reporter for Channel 12, I carried a very, very heavy camera, a very, very heavy tape deck. And we had no computers, and we didn't use cell phones. We had two-way radios and pagers for reaching people out and about, but still, you had to stop and use a payphone if you were trying to reach somebody. We did a whole lot more speaking directly with human beings, where now, in the age of information being available at your fingertips,
Yes, literally.
we're able to access a lot more information and probably do a better job in our reporting as a result, because we also can go on Google and look for that background or try to find out the figures or the definition of something, where it used to take a phone call. So I think the time that it takes us to compile the news has changed. Our tools have changed.
And how about social media? Do you guys both engage in social media?
Hugely,
I do.
hugely, yes. I know for our station it's really grown recently. It's not just broadcasting. People don't want to wait for the 5 o'clock news. They want the information immediately.
So, and Doni, your whole premise started with the social media element. I mean, 6
In a
years ago,
way,
you were really
yeah.
one of the first.
I
do
went
what
in.
you did.
I was dragged into social media, kicking and screaming. I'm more of a paper person, but because I couldn't work as a journalist at the paper, then I went online. But what I think is interesting is, like, when you're at the paper and you write a story and you make a mistake and you do a correction, it's on A2 24 hours later. And online, if you make a mistake, I can go in immediately and change it. And I can say, oh, or we have an update. We have a reporter, John Lewis, who covers the Reading City Council meetings, and so he was able to file the main story about Costco, and then the next day, 12 hours later, he could file the bullet points from the rest of it. So that's cool. And I think being a woman in media, I remember when I was a columnist, I would get comments like, why don't you just go make cupcakes and stay in the kitchen?
Oh my gosh.
And I think that's changed. I think people are just more accustomed to seeing women deliver the news and being the leaders in news. So that's nice. I mean, I laugh about it when I think about it now.
Well, it's so much, I mean, not just media has changed, but it's so funny. I was reading an article last week about how when they were advertising undergarments, bras, that they would show women in really improbable places. So they would like show a woman in a firehouse and say, can you imagine, or imagine if you were here, or imagine, like, improbable things. Well, then one of them was, imagine if you were in an office. And it was the woman in a skirt with just her bra on, right, in the caption of the ad.
Who's that ad for?
And it was
I'm just curious.
Oh, what was it? Maidenform?
No, I mean the audience.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was in the 60s.
Oh,
and so it was like, imagine things that a woman would never do. And now they were laughing in discussing this ad. That of course a woman would be in the office, and how horrific that they were showing a picture of her without clothes on in the office, as part of the ad.
Again, that goes back to who was that ad made for?
Exactly.
Once
and
upon
who
a
wrote
time.
the ad?
Exactly.
Because a woman did not write that ad.
No.
You guarantee it.
No.
Once upon a time, women, as broadcasters, television broadcasters, initially it was just kind of eye candy, the pretty young thing sitting next to the man who delivered the news, or maybe she would deliver weather. And it's evolved.
accessory.
Now women are hugely powerful. We have
Yes.
Oprah Winfrey and Barbara Walters, and there are women news directors, and women are slowly, breaking through the glass ceiling when it comes to television broadcasting. But I think there's still maybe some disparity when it comes to pay, say a male anchor versus a female anchor, and it may depend also on what city you are and what part of the country. So I think there are still some gains that could be made for women in broadcasting. I think sometimes as a reporter it's easier to be a woman. We're threatened less with our lives. For example, if a male is there with a cameraman filming and somebody doesn't want you there, especially a man, they often don't threaten they will threaten to shoot them, they will threaten to assault them. Get out of here. Where if it's a woman, you might not. Maybe you're not seeing
maybe more
as
disarming.
as big of a threat. So you do have, I think, some benefits to being a woman in broadcasting as well.
Well, I mean, you guys have been in media for quite some time. So, what would you say is one of your most memorable moments?
Well, when I was at the Record Searchlight, at that time my name was Greenberg, and there were the Williams brothers. Do you remember the synagogue burners? They killed a gay couple here. And they focused on my last name being Greenberg and decided they started sending death threats from jail. And the Record Searchlight has a bulletproof counter now, thanks to those threats. But that was a pretty scary time. But the thing I love about being a reporter is you get to go places where no one else can go. I've been in the back of really crummy-looking kitchens, or in a mortuary, story, or all you can say is you're writing a story, and you get an open door to all kinds of really cool, interesting places, and you get to meet some fantastic people.
Yeah.
So
and you're really
we all kind of
audience
morph.
We can chase the sirens
That's
and
right.
ambulances and not get in trouble for it. You know, a lot of people have to keep your, and we do stay out of the way. I mean, obviously we don't want to interfere with.
You lose credibility and the ability to come back next time if you're not.
You know, we work with the various agencies very well. You have to. You don't want to put your life in danger. You don't want to endanger their lives, and you don't want to certainly interfere in a story situation.
What's one of your favorite stories, Linda?
You know, I have so many. Like Doni was saying, I've been up in a helicopter. I've been on a boat in the flooded Sacramento River where you felt that you could touch the bridge you were going under.
Wow.
Those are always the thrilling types of stories. But I think what I enjoy most, and where, you know, there's so many, I can't list just one, but the ability to make a difference. Simply by telling a story and getting information out, whether it be an individual story or something maybe the community is not aware of that they should be. If you can educate people or help educate them, and then should they choose, they can take action and make a difference, you know, for the greater good. I think really that is the, you know, best thing about being in a position, I'm going to say a position of power.
Yeah, it absolutely
is. It's a very powerful job that we have, the ability to, it's not that we're looking to sway opinion. No. I don't editorialize, and I work really hard to, you know, walk the line of fairness.
Right.
But, you know, to help people be informed and make those decisions, and to tell the stories that might otherwise not be told. I think that's my favorite thing about what I do.
Right. And I think, like in a news cafe, I had an example classic last night that happened. About 3 o'clock, I got a notice from someone saying my nephew is missing. He's 16 years old, and no other media had picked up on it, or they wouldn't run it, and the police department wouldn't confirm it. And I thought, well, what if it's a prank? I mean, and so it took hours to confirm and finally reached the mom. And so I went, okay, I'll put it up. The mom hat came on, and I went, how would I feel if that were my kids?
That's right.
Within 30 minutes after putting it on Facebook, somebody saw it and said, my kids are hanging out with that kid right now. He's under a bridge. They've been feeding him. And they were able to call the parents. So that's just, isn't like, all I did was put out the information, and that's kind of shining the flashlight or getting it out, and then people can do the rest.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Facebook and the whole social media component. What are you looking at as far as the media world with getting, how does that play in with what you guys are doing? Because Facebook is not a part of the News Cafe.
No, we have a page, and I post things, but actually on my personal page.
Right, that was your personal page, but you're known in large part because of your media exposure over the years. So how does that all play in? Do you have numbers or ideas or stuff like that?
Well, I can say for me personally, I administer 3 Facebook pages. One is my personal page. I have 650 friends who I try to make sure I actually know.
Right.
I have a professional page that has 766 likes. I'm hoping to grow it. And I focus more on news and information, and I don't share as much personal information. But still,
But they still get to glean a bit from you on your professional
And I'm
page.
an administrator on Action News Now's Facebook page, which right now has about 10,000 likes.
Wow.
And so, you know, that's a lot of people that I can reach online in a second. And we've learned, again, people don't want to wait for their information. So we'll get the basics out there. And we'll try to steer people to our website and to our broadcast. And our website, I believe, I did cheat, and we now have a professional social media website.
Oh, that's excellent.
Manager, and
But that's great to see that you guys are adapting. I mean, adapting to the way, you know, society's going. I mean, Facebook is not obviously the only way. I mean, Twitter, of course, and LinkedIn and all these other things. But it's just nice to see news sources going the way of the society, not trying to stay. I mean, because I'm sure your learning curve was
very steep.
Very steep.
And the thing is, for selfish reasons, it's good too, not just to get out the information, but to get information. I mean, well, not just that, but on my personal Facebook page, I think I have like almost 5,000. That's some magic number. Something will change. But that's as much for getting news tips too.
Right.
Sure,
I can put
sure.
something out and say, hey, remember the story about the girl who was kidnapped a year or so ago? And I was able to find people to interview, her family. Almost everybody's on Facebook.
Right.
So it's a great news source also.
We
Right.
do, and I will say that's part of how news has evolved is a lot more viewer participation,
Right.
Yes.
user participation. When there's a tornado, we have, we're a small news station, so we don't have the ability to be everywhere.
Right.
Right.
The majority of our photos and even video now on something like that is coming in via
Right.
Facebook, via email, and via our website, and it's become part of our news delivery.
Right,
is
and that's-
viewer participation and information.
And that's very important. I mean, everybody feels like now. I think. Well, let me just speak for myself. I think that the most amazing part of being a viewer and being able to say, "Hey, here's my opinion," and that being everyone can see it. I mean, it's now they call it something. What do they call that? When you can participate, it's called something. But anyway, CNN does something like that where they have their own thing where everyone.
What do you think about this?
Yeah, or
Polls.
they take pictures and they say,
Your
download.
snapshot.
Yeah, your
Even
snapshot.
things like fires. I'll do a story about a fire, and I'll say, "Hey, anybody out in those areas, let us know what you're
Yeah,
seeing
take
and
a picture.
hearing."
Exactly.
And we'll give them photo credits. And a news cafe now has between 45,000 and 60,000 unique visitors a month, which means one IP address in one place, and then almost 2 million page views a month.
Wow.
So the reach is so far, and it's like I think people feel like it's more of a family. That's kind of how I've kind of couched it. Is it's a news cafe family.
There are a lot of real regular folks, and a lot of new people. I think we get 30,000 new visits a month.
Yeah.
And not just Northern California,
Right.
but Southern California, San Francisco, elsewhere, people who have a link or an interest
Right.
to what's happening
Yeah.
here
Well,
too.
and the cool thing, you could be in Europe on vacation. You're
Well.
like, what's going on at home?
Yeah.
Right? And where is your site administered from?
My
Doni?
administrator is in the Czech Republic. It's my son who's the web tender who created it for me on that Sunday. And so he and I Skype 3 times a week. And so he's 9 hours ahead, so he can post like John Lewis's story. I go to bed. It's too late to stay up. But we also have a section called the Photo Cafe. We have 24 deputies, and I've given them the ability with a code. They can upload any photo they want, which is pretty scary,
Yeah.
with no
You have to trust
moderation.
them, for
But we have
sure.
people in Paris who live in Paris.
Oh, wow.
There's one in China, a lot in the North State.
Yeah.
Anything they think is interesting.
Right.
So you do cover, essentially, I mean, you have global touch points.
global.
We're
global
North,
touch points.
Yeah, we're North Strait centric, Shasta County centric, but we
Right.
go from Medford to Sacramento solidly, but mainly it's the North State. And I think we were talking before, I have to remind myself to not just focus on writing in Shasta County.
It is the North State. So if you had a daughter, there was a big article a couple weeks ago about how no tennis player would want their children to go into tennis. Would you guys advise a
man.
daughter or a niece or someone young and bright-eyed and idealistic and
Well, how about any
bushy-tailed
kid?
to
I'm not
go-
sure. It's
Yeah.
journalism.
Matter female or male,
Journalism
I
is
think.
changing so much. I think, a lot of papers and companies are dumping their reporters in all
photographers.
different kinds of media. So I
Chicago
think
Tribune did away with all their photography.
and a lot of it's
Really?
being sent overseas for like the art departments, and they're hiring part-time people. So I think though there's this new generation of what we call backpack journalism, where all you need is a laptop and a cell phone, and you could basically work for a bunch of people, like work for you, work for
Just
me,
freelancing.
freelance stringers. I think, and you could go all over the world
Going
and
back
do
to the stringer
that.
of
Well,
before.
yeah,
That's awesome.
But I don't know that it would pay terribly well, frankly.
you'd have to work your butt off.
You do,
And you do
now.
that when you're young anyway, right? You should do that when you're young.
You have to have a passion for it. I started out as a writer. I didn't set out to be on television. That's where my journalism took me. But still, basically, I'm a writer.
Right.
And it's a tough profession. In fact, I can't attribute who recently said it's the worst profession in terms of how you're treated, compensation, the hours, the dangers, the risks. It's very,
And you know why you don't hear about it?
transitory.
Because nobody's going to allow your writers to report that.
Yeah.
So you're reporting on that. Nobody reports on it. Do you?
The news doesn't stop on Christmas,
Yeah.
Easter. We have around-the-clock crews. A lot of people are working the they're coming in at 12:30 in the morning.
Wasn't that
another crew comes in at 9? Another crew
Right.
comes in at 3 weekends. You know.
And
so.
do you remember when they were? Some people were complaining about having to work at Walmart on Thanksgiving Eve, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what about all the people in real life who work graveyard and work over holidays and you know,
just,
that's part of life.
But the other side of that,
it is a rough.
It is a rough
But it's
profession,
exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like an adrenaline rush, and you can make a difference.
and
If
you do
love
have to be
it,
passionate
yeah,
about
you
it.
have
I
to
mean,
like
I
it
think-
because it's not easy.
Yeah.
So
It's
these
not
girls
easy
who
at
come
all.
and say, "Oh, I want to be on Fox
TV.
News
Oh.
and get the airbrushing and all that."
Not that that doesn't happen. You know, there are people who can walk in and they may be very beautiful and able to put
And
a
smart.
sentence together. And you know, they can certainly, make their way up. Again, it's very subjective as to who's doing the hiring. But you do have majority, I would say, of, say, female anchors today. In television, that's what most people aspire to. It pays best. And you probably, you don't have to schlep your gear around in the field. But it takes a long time to get there. You are working in small towns, and I'm from a small town, so I didn't have a problem with that, but we have a lot of people coming from larger cities who feel that they're somehow isolated.
So you don't think even with the social media, you said it takes a long time, and we don't have a long time left on our show tonight, but it takes a long time. Do you think even with the impact of social media, you think it's still more of a be prepared for a 10 or 15 year?
I don't think necessarily. I remember when I was going to Chico State graduating, and I told my instructor I wanted to be a columnist, and he says, that takes about 10 years. And within a couple of years at the paper, I'd done it. If you have your sights set on something, and you just hammer away at it and bug people, if you, keep your eye on the prize, I think you can do it. I think you could do it.
I was anchoring within, I want to say 4 years when I started as a reporter.
Yeah.
That's probably faster than they
I
say.
think one of the big differences too from when you guys started and now is that before the exposure was so limited, right? You had to know someone to get you into an internship and then start. And now, I mean, a lot of people get their career start by starting a blog and having really well-written articles that have been picked up by other, that's essentially their way of freelancing, but they start out with a blog.
You can
similar to how you started your
Yeah.
magazine.
You don't need to have a necessarily media outlet to prove yourself.
Exactly.
You can post your own
Create your own media outlet.
It's
as
true.
Tori and the hair story. Do you remember her hair video?
No.
Tori who burned her hair?
Oh, yes.
For heaven's sake.
Yes, I do
Funniest thing
remember
of
that
the
video.
I'll
year.
have to Google it. Yeah.
You have to Google it. Tori who
Yes.
if you Google I burned my hair off.
Yes, yes.
You'll
pretty
get
bad.
the whole
But
thing.
it's just like, what was
She
it?
was an instant star. She was on Ellen. She had worldwide recognition.
Yes.
So if you're out there thinking, gosh, I really want to get in media.
Burn your hair.
Yeah, bring your hair off.
Burn your hair. Make a really cute one. That for tonight, we're finished. We don't have much time left. Thanks for watching the forum, and we're going to look forward to seeing you back here again next week.
Please go to our Facebook page, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Local program funding provided by a generous grant from Union Pacific. Union Pacific, building America.
I'm Karen Hoyt, Marketing Director at Shasta Regional Medical Center, and we're proud to be part of the conversation that the Forum at KIXE is bringing to our community. Shasta Regional has been around for more than 60 years supporting our community, and we would like to invite you to be a part of the Forum on KIXE. Together, we can support the community that gives us back so much. Thank you.